The station emptied as night fell. Lights dimmed, voices vanished, but one small figure stayed. A silent boy, no older than 10, curled near the tracks. This was where he slept. Tonight something new lay beside him, a metal box, wires. A slow blinking red light. He froze, no screams, no motion. Just fear alive and ticking. Outside the city hummed. No alarms rang, no one knew. But across the street, someone saw the glow. Police arrived. Taped off the area. We're evacuating the block, they said. But one officer asked, is someone still inside? A whisper. A child. Homeless. He doesn't talk. Inside the station, the boy didn't move. He remembered a sound like this once, long ago. When his world ended, they radioed for bomb disposal. ETA 18 minutes. Too long. An officer peered through the glass. He's not moving. Panic spread fast, but solutions came slow. No one dared enter. No one could risk it, except one man who didn't take orders. He didn't need permission, because this wasn't strategy. It was instinct. And when he turned the corner, the crowd parted without being told. Ibrahim Traoré? The officer gasped. He nodded. Wearing no armor, no guards, only purpose. We're waiting for the specialists, the officer said. Traoré's eyes narrowed. I've seen 100 of these on battlefields that never made the news. But this one's different, he said, then walked toward the station. Every step tighter, every second louder, and no one could stop him. Though they tried. A woman grabbed his sleeve. Please, don't. That's someone else's job. He looked at her. I won't ask someone to do what I won't do myself. Then he passed the tape. No plan, no speech. Just motion. The boy inside couldn't scream. But his eyes were wide open, and Traoré was walking straight toward them. If you believe leadership means showing up when no one else will subscribe now, this story deserves to be heard. Inside, dust floated in still air. Every echo threatened to trigger more, but Traoré didn't flinch. His boots met the tiled floor like a heartbeat. The boy saw him. Didn't move. Couldn't. Traoré raised one hand slow, palm open. Not to signal power. To offer trust, the bomb blinked quietly. 2 lives. 1 breath away from ending. Outside, someone shouted, "Tell him to wait, the team's close." But no voice reached him, because the moment he stepped in, he tuned the world out. His focus belonged to the boy. A child frozen not by a bomb, but by memory. A noise once shattered his world. Now silence was all he had. And in that silence, Traoré stepped closer. He knelt beside him, didn't speak, didn't touch. Just met his eyes. The boy blinked once. A tear, slow and silent. Traoré nodded like he understood it all. He pointed gently to the floor, then the bench, then mimed breathing. Deep, steady. The boy did as told. Without words, he listened. For the first time in years, the bomb ticked, its light steady. Traoré slowly moved his coat aside, not to reveal a weapon, but a folded blanket. He laid it down beside the boy, soft, warm, then extended a hand. Not to grab, to invite. And the boy, trembling, reached out. 1 fingertip, then a palm. And still no one spoke. They crossed the yellow tape together. The boy clung to him like a shadow. People gasped. Reporters asked questions. No one dared step forward. Traoré said nothing. He looked at the officer. The bomb's still inside, but he's not. And with that, he kept walking, as if he hadn't just stopped a tragedy. But something lingered in the silence. It wasn't over yet. Traoré sat the boy on the curb, gently wiped his hands. Someone offered water. He refused it. Instead, he pulled a small whistle from his pocket and handed it to the boy. No voice? A woman whispered. Traoré replied. Then let the world hear him in other ways. If this moment spoke louder than words to you, tap like. Let silence echo further. A medic stepped forward. We need to run tests. He may be in shock. Traoré nodded ... but the boy didn't look away. His eyes followed Traoré like an anchor. Every twitch, every blink he mimicked. He didn't trust doctors, but he trusted the man who sat beside a bomb and blinked back his fear. With a blanket, a soldier leaned over. Sir, it was a timed device 10 more minutes and… Traoré cut him off. How did it get there? The officer looked down. We don't know. But someone wanted a massacre. Traoré nodded. This wasn't war. This was a message. He looked back at the boy. So we'll send one of our own. Doctors asked, Can we sedate him? Traoré answered. He's had enough silence forced on him. Let him rest on his terms. The boy didn't speak, but he slept ... first time in days. And Traoré watched every breath, every dream twitch. Because trauma didn't always scream. Sometimes it hid in stillness. At dawn, the boy opened his eyes. He saw the same figure beside him, same eyes, same quiet. He sat up slowly, then reached for the whistle and held it close. No sound. But his grip said everything. He hadn't just survived, he'd connected. And that connection was louder than any explosion. Reporters camped outside the hospital. Rumors flew. Who is the boy? Will the president adopt him? Was this a political stunt? Traoré left through the back door. He didn't answer questions, because the story wasn't his. Not yet. It belonged to a child, finding his way back. From silence. In a quiet room with peeling paint, Traoré spoke to a social worker. He has no name on file, no family, no record. The man nodded. I know. Traoré looked back at the boy, then down at the form and picked up the pen, because silence had done enough. Now it was time to give this child a name. What name will you give him? Traoré looked up. One he chooses. The clerk raised an eyebrow. He doesn't speak. He will, Traoré replied. Not when he's told, when he's ready. The form stayed blank, but the boy, watching from the door, gripped the whistle tighter. He had a voice. He just hadn't found its sound yet. That night, Traoré sat beside the boy, a pencil in hand. He drew a lion, then slid the paper over. The boy stared, then pointed to it and tapped twice. A name wasn't spoken, it was claimed. If you had to name this boy, what would you call him? Drop it in the comments. Let him be known by the names hope gives. Across the country, the story spread. But no official statements came. Traoré didn't speak at rallies. He didn't brand the rescue. He just worked, rebuilt stations, secured safe zones, and visited the boy every single evening, because some leadership doesn't lead with speeches, but with presence. One morning the boy wasn't in his bed. The nurse panicked. Doors checked, security notified, until they found him in the garden feeding a stray dog, still silent, but calm, because for the first time, he wasn't afraid of being alone. Traoré arrived just then. The boy looked up, held out a piece of bread, and offered half. Traoré sat, tore the bread, ate without words. 2 silhouettes, quiet as sunrise. A guard watching whispered, I think the boy's teaching him something too. No one disagreed. In a secret meeting, advisors pressed, Sir, if you made a statement, we could rally support. Traoré raised a hand. Make it about the boy, and you bury the truth. But the people want to hear your side. They already did, he said. They just didn't realize silence was speaking. That night, Traoré read another book, a story about a storm. A child, and a home found in the dark. At the last page, he closed it, and the boy touched his own chest, then pointed to Traoré. His mouth opened, but no words came, just breath. But that was enough. The silence had shifted. A week passed. Then, too, the boy began to hum, not words, not melody, just sound soft, low, real. And Traoré never interrupted, because he knew every child finds their voice in a different kind of silence. One day, a volunteer teacher brought paints. The boy drew fire. Then a whistle, then two hands, one open, one holding. He pointed to the open hand, then to Traoré, then placed the paper on his chest. No words, no sound, just color, telling what his voice hadn't yet. An embassy sent a letter. Is it true the president has taken in a child? The response never came. But at a clinic window, the boy sat drawing, beside him Traoré, silently helping. No press release, no name tag, just one hand steadying the page. As the other one painted, no politics, only presence. At the station where it all began, locals left candles, flowers, drawings, not to mourn, but to remember survival. A conductor whispered, "That child reminded us. There's still something worth protecting." And for once, no one rushed the platform. One afternoon, the boy ran down a hallway, unseen, unheard, until a nurse shouted, "He's outside." Traoré walked calmly, found him under a tree, giggling softly, no words, but laughter. And that was the loudest sound anyone had heard from him yet. That night, Traoré brought a music box, simple, old. Winding it slowly, he let the tune fill the room. The boy watched in wonder, then placed a hand on the box and nodded. It wasn't speech, but it was connection, built note by note. Volunteers asked, "Does he understand what happened that day?" Traoré replied, "He remembers everything, but he carries it differently now." Then handed the boy the music box. If this moment says more than words ever could, tap like, let silence become strength. In a rare interview, Traoré was asked, "What made you walk into that station?" He paused, then said, "Because if I wouldn't do it myself, I'd never ask another man to try. And because one child's life is worth every risk, even mine." Someone tried to politicize the story, an article titled, "Presidential Stunt or Genuine Heart?" But it backfired. The boy's paintings had been displayed, dozens of them. None showed flags. Only hands, shelter, color, and quiet. No one questioned him after that. Months passed. The boy's drawings now had names, titles, stories. He still didn't speak much, but when he did, they were soft, clear, and few, and always started with Traoré's name. Never, sir, just Ibrahim, like a whisper. Turned home. The boy was enrolled in school. First day, nervous, eyes wide, backpack tight. Traoré walked him to the gate, knelt beside him, and whispered something. The boy smiled, nodded, then walked inside. He didn't look back, because when someone teaches you to be still, you learn how to move. At recess, the boy sat alone, not sad, just watching. Then a girl approached, offered a red crayon. He took it, looked at the sky, and drew a sun. A teacher watching wiped a tear. Sometimes color says more than chatter. The boy looked up and smiled just once. Bright? Sure. Back at the station, a plaque was unveiled, not of Traoré, not of the rescue, but of a single word carved in stone. Stillness. People left notes. Whispers filled the place, and somehow, the silence there felt sacred. A film director requested rights. "This story needs to be seen," Traoré declined. "Not yet. Why not?" He looked out the window. because he's still writing it. And I'd rather the world hear his version, not mine. One day, the boy brought Traoré a new drawing. It showed two hands, one large, one small, both holding a thread. He had labeled it himself, just one word, home. Traoré didn't speak, just placed a hand on the boy's shoulder, gently, like closing a door. Without slamming it, a school project asked, "What do you want to be?" The boy wrote just 3 words, like Ibrahim someday. He didn't explain. No one asked him to, because every student already knew what it meant, and the teacher smiled, folding the paper carefully, like it mattered. A donor asked, "Can we name the program after you, sir?" Traoré said no. Name it after the boy. What name? He smiled. The one he gave himself. The donor blinked. And what is it? Traoré held up a drawing, a lion, a whistle, and a name only they understood. The boy now spoke in class, few words, but clear, always with purpose. His favorite phrase, "Quiet is powerful." One day he said it to a nervous friend. The teacher paused, because the words weren't just advice, they were lived, earned, passed on. Someone once asked Traoré, "What does he call you now?" He smiled. No titles, no politics, just one word. The reporter leaned in. "What's that?" Traoré looked away, not to hide it, but to protect it, because the word was sacred, and sometimes unsaid is strongest. On a quiet morning, the boy stood at the station again, older now, back straight, same eyes. He placed a single flower where he once sat, then blew the whistle, soft and short, not to call for help, but to honor silence. That saved him. That day, Traoré met him on the platform. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. They simply walked, a lion and a cub, a chapter and its sequel. And for the first time, someone asked the boy, "What's your story?" He looked ahead and whispered, "It begins in silence." A new classroom opened, built near the station. It welcomed children who had nowhere else to go. Its name? House of Quiet Lions. The boy walked its halls, not as a student, but as a guide. He didn't speak much. He didn't need to, because every step he took told a louder story. In the evenings, he painted still suns, open hands, eyes that listened. One day, Traoré visited. The boy handed him a canvas. It showed them walking away from the bomb, together. No fire, no smoke, just 2 shadows and one thread connecting them. At a summit, a leader quoted him, "Quiet is powerful." Cameras flashed, ... People clapped. But somewhere in the crowd, the boy just smiled, softly, humbly, because for him, those weren't just words. They were the reason he was still alive. Traoré now spoke less in public, wrote more letters, listened longer, and one letter, handwritten, he gave to the boy on his birthday. The boy read it, then placed it under his pillow. He never shared what it said, because some truths are just for 2 people. One night the boy asked, "Why did you walk in that day?" Traoré paused, then replied, "Because silence called me louder than orders ever could." The boy nodded ... and whispered back, "Thank you for answering." The boy stood on a small stage, reading his first story aloud. Hands trembled, voice soft, but clear. He ended with, "This is for the man who taught me how to hear again by saying nothing." And no one in the room. Breath too loud. Back at the station, the whistle was framed on the wall. Under it, one sound, one life, one choice. The boy stood before it, now taller, stronger, alive, and Traoré stood behind him silent, still. If this story moved you, share it. Comment what silence means to you. Let others feel what this boy never forgot. Sometimes a single breath, is a revolution. Years later, the boy now a man returned again. No cameras. No crowd. Just a flower and a folded note. He left them at the bench where it all began. The note read, "He didn't save me. He gave me the space to save myself." And somewhere far away, Traoré stood in a garden, eyes closed. Wind on his face, he smiled just once. Not because he knew the boy was safe, but because he knew he no longer had to walk alone. The silence had been passed on